Okay, again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. My name is LaShonda Wilson, and I'm an Education Program Specialist here at OSSE. I'm joined by my OSSE colleagues across multiple divisions as we present content pertinent to policy monitoring, systemic supports, and professional development for LEA SPED POCs. We have a lengthy presentation this morning, chock full of content, so be sure to get your note-taking devices ready. We'll begin this morning with policy reminders and updates and Individuals with Disabilities Education Act monitoring and updates. Then we'll segue into transportation reminders and updates. We'll also have a special guest, DOT Director Michael Rowley, joining us this morning. We'll then transition to special programs reminders and updates, followed by non-public reminders and updates, and teaching and learning reminders and updates. We'll conclude with announcements and reminders. Okay, I'll turn it over now to Christy Weaver-Harris to discuss policy reminders and updates. Christy?
Good evening, everybody. This is Christy Weaver-Harris. I'm the Policy Manager in the Office of Special Education. I'm going to talk about a variety of topics. All right, let's get started with some child find information. As part of child find obligations, LEAs must conduct public awareness activities that are sufficient to inform parents in the community regarding the availability of special education and related services and the methods that you have available to request those services and programs. About 3 years ago, we released a model poster to support LEA child find activities. Please make sure your LEA is posting either these posters or similar information in an area where parents can see it and making that information available to parents on a wide basis. You can download our poster template from our website, which is linked on this slide. It's available both in color and black and white. Next slide, please. So those effective child find practices that I just was referring to will lead to your LEA receiving referrals, which are also requests for initial evaluation. LEAs may accept a referral from any source, and we encourage you to do so. But you must accept referrals from parents, adult students who hold their own educational rights, employees of your LEA with knowledge of the student, and employees of other public agencies with knowledge of the student. A good example of a public agency here would be folks with CFSA, such as a CFSA social worker. For children under the age of 6, LEAs must also accept referrals from pediatricians and other medical professionals, child development facilities and daycares, district agencies, including Strong Start, which is the District of Columbia's IDEA Part C Early Intervention Service, community and civic organizations, and advocacy organizations. So requests for initial evaluation or referrals can be made in any form, and they can be verbal or written. You do need to be helping outside referral sources and especially parents to appropriately document their requests for initial evaluations, but you cannot require that the request be in writing. You, as the LEA, must document the referral in writing within 3 days of receiving it. So that means you need to be entering it in special programs within 3 days of speaking with that or being contacted by that referral source, because the clock will start ticking on the initial evaluation timeline. Timely initial evaluations also cannot be delayed or denied due to to give you time to conduct screening or to implement pre-referral interventions such as RTI or response to intervention. So I really want to emphasize here the importance of accepting referrals in whatever form they come to you in, documenting them in a timely manner, and not delaying either the receipt of referrals or the documentation of referrals or your LEA moving on determining the next steps for the initial evaluation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to review LEA obligations related to the transition of children leaving Part C services and entering LEAs. And again, this is a type of referral that your LEA may receive. This is often a point of confusion, so we want to remind LEAs of their obligations under district laws and regulations. DCPS and charter schools have slightly different responsibilities depending on the student's enrollment. Public charter schools are responsible for children who are currently enrolled and attending the LEA and for students who are stage 4 enrolled for the upcoming school year. So in light of My School DC results, those are those students who accept a seat in your charter for the upcoming 24-25 school year. DCPS is responsible essentially for everyone else, meaning students who are enrolled in DCPS schools and resident students who are not otherwise enrolled in a charter school. And this can include students who are not enrolled in any school, students who are homeschooled, and students who are enrolled in private or religious schools. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for your LEA? Under IDEA and local regulations, LEAs must ensure the smooth and effective transition for children who are coming over from IDEA Part C. And that includes attending transition conferences as appropriate, developing an IEP by the child's 3rd birthday as appropriate, and implementing the IEP by the child's 3rd birthday as appropriate. So as appropriate has different meanings at different stages of this process. It's appropriate to attend the transition conference when you are invited and the child is enrolling in your LEA. If you receive a transition conference invitation and you do not believe that the student has a seat in your LEA or is attending your LEA or will be attending your LEA, make sure that you reach out to the contacts at Strong Start to determine who the appropriate LEA is. It's appropriate to develop an IEP for a child if that child is determined eligible through the initial evaluation process. And it's appropriate to implement the IEP when the child actually attends your LEA, and that is stage 5 enrollment. We have some very specific timelines related to IEP implementation, providing specialized instruction on the child's first day, so their first day of stage 5 enrollment, and provide each related service at least once within the first 14 days of stage 5 enrollment. If you have any questions about these obligations, please feel free to reach out to Sarah Peisch at sarahpeisch1@dc.gov. Next slide. All right, moving on to ESY. Here's the list of specific activities that each LEA must complete and the due dates associated with those tasks. The ESY certification date is always the first Monday in May, which this year is Monday, May 6th. So you need to have all of these tasks completed by Monday, May 6th. But I also want to draw your attention to the fact that some of these tasks must be completed before others. For example, student eligibilities have to be determined in special programs 1 day before a TRF can be submitted. So you determine eligibility in special programs. The student, after the data systems connect overnight, the student appears in IDS the next day. If you're having to conduct IEP amendments, this is a reminder to be updating the ESY section of the IEP, not the services and supplemental aids. There's an entire separate section for ESY. If you're amending for transportation, that is a service and supplemental aid. So make sure you're amending the correct areas of the IEP when you're doing that. Next slide. To have a successful ESY season, there are some continuing obligations after the ESY certification deadline. LEAs must assign students to ESY site locations and document student attendance in the SLED ESY module. Entering ESY attendance is especially important for charter funding. Charters are paid on a per pupil basis according to reported attendance. Every year we have a few LEAs who miss the deadline for submitting their ESY attendance and they miss out on money. Don't be that LEA. We want to make sure you're getting the money that you need. For more information, please see the 2024 ESY preparation guide, which was released yesterday. If you are an LEA SPED point of contact, you receive, or a transportation point of contact, or an LEA data manager, you received an email directly from me with a link and information on the ESY preparation guide. If you did not receive that and you would like more information on it, please feel free to reach out to me directly, drop a question in the questions box. I can drop a link in the chat also. But that prep guide is available on our special education guidance page, which has links to a ton of other guidances. Make sure you're referring to that page when you are looking for support. Next slide, please. So the 2024-25 Early Access to Students with Disabilities data application is available. This application gives LEAs timely and appropriate access to information for pre-enrolled students. If you look in it right now, it's just the students who are enrolled in your LEA currently. We will have My School DC data, I believe, around April 26th. That could be wrong. I will double check that date and clarify that at the end of the webinar. So this is a click application. We give access to lots of types of POCs, but if you have questions about getting access to that, your best bet is to start with your LEA data manager. Next slide. So again, the early access application provides a ton of information that we pull between SLED and special programs, and it's intended to help with planning for the upcoming school year. This slide shows an overview of what is available in the application, which you can also filter to manipulate and meet your needs. You can use this data to help inform decisions around staffing, classroom and cohort assignments, training needs, identifying students for whom you need to submit a TRF as soon as you have access for those kiddos, calendaring meetings, all sorts of planning. As a reminder, if you download information from this system, you're going to want to delete those downloads on a periodic basis, as rosters and student information is updated on a daily basis. So information and student enrollments can change. You want to make sure that you're deleting those downloads as you're going. Next slide, please. All right, at the beginning of this school year, OSSE released a special education handbook, which is a comprehensive overview of special education processes from referral to exit. We're in the process of reviewing and updating the handbook for the next school year, and we would love to hear from you about how it can be improved to best support LEAs. If you have feedback or suggestions, please send them to Alex Milson at alexandra.milson@dc.gov. And this work is being done on my team. We anticipate updating the handbook on an annual basis. So we really do encourage you to reach out if you have questions, points of clarification in the handbook, if there's additional information that you want to see in the handbook. We're trying to make as many connections as possible between the practice and special programs. So we're going to be adding some references to special programs in the handbook. But please feel free to provide that feedback to Alex. Next slide, please. All right, the Chapter 30 special education regulations require LEA personnel using physical restraints to be trained and certified in the appropriate use of specific evidence-based techniques. To support LEAs in ensuring appropriate staff training and the use of physical restraints, OSSE is again hosting in-person trainings for certification in the MANT system. The MANT system is a comprehensive, integrative approach to preventing, de-escalating, and if necessary, intervening when behaviors pose a threat of harm to individuals, themselves, or others. These trainings are ESSER funded, so they will be ending after this, after the current school 2024. While we will be hosting some trainings at OSSE's offices, and those will be available on our website soon, we also have some availability for trainings to be provided on site at your school buildings. There are some really specific requirements and commitments that you as an LEA must make to host those on-site trainings, including requirements related to the physical space, requirements for technology, and participants, both in terms of the types of roles that you are training and in making sure that folks' time is dedicated to attending and engaging in the training. To be quite honest, in the past, we've had some issues with people being overly interrupted while they're in the training. And under the MANT system, the trainers cannot certify folks who don't attend the entire training. If you're interested in this for your LEA between now and the end of August, please reach out to me directly at christy.weaver-harris@dc.gov. And I believe that's my last slide. I will keep an eye on the questions box and circle back at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I'll hand it over now to Karen Morgan Donaldson, who will be reviewing our IDEA monitoring, reminders, and updates. Karen?
Thank you, LaShonda. This is Karen Morgan Donaldson, Manager of IDEA Monitoring and Compliance, and I have a few updates for you. Next slide, please. This is more or less a non-update, but I wanted to just let you know that we don't have an update on exactly the go-live date for the transition from DC CATS to Stepwell, but I would like to reiterate that it will be taking place during the start of school. So please stay tuned for information about trainings around Stepwell. Please continue to utilize DC CATS for any of our monitoring activities, which I will share with you in our next slide. Okay, so this provides information about current IDEA monitoring activities. OSSE is conducting monitoring in the areas of secondary transition, which is indicator 13, in the APR, and reevaluation timeliness. These are all related to our specific conditions, reporting to the Department of Education. So please keep a lookout for notification emails from DC CATS and the IDEA monitoring team regarding release of these initial reports in DC CATS. If you have any questions about these specific monitoring activities, please reach out to LaShonda Wilson. In our next slide, these are a list of reports that are currently open in DC CATS. Just want to flag for you that prong 2 is coming due for secondary transition and reevaluation timeliness reports from last year, coming due on June 5th. If you are unsure or unclear and need clarification around these reports, please reach out to Deborah Melville. Okay, and next slide. As the state education agency, OSSE is required to serve as the ex officio trustee to assist in providing materials for students with visual impairments. So each year, Congress appropriates funding through the American Printing House to conduct an annual census of students with visual impairments in each state in order to provide students with materials and accommodations. So if you have a student that qualifies as having a visual impairment, either as their primary or secondary disability or as part of a multiple disability, please contact Dana Hodges at the email listed here by April 24th. So we did receive an extension for this activity. So even if you're unsure as to whether you have a student that meets the qualifications or the criteria for this, please reach out to Dana Hodges and we can help you determine that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to LaShonda, who will provide some helpful information around the secondary transition monitoring that is currently taking place. LaShonda, there you go.
Thank you very much, Karen. As Karen said, we'll be concluding the secondary transition monitoring file review this week. We started that review on April 1st, 2024, but we wanted to also give you some additional updates to be on the lookout for the release of your LEA's secondary transition monitoring report in DC CATS. LEAs will have 30 days from the release of the initial report to complete correction of noncompliance prior to the review and release of the final report. We also wanted to give you an update to please be sure to adhere to any guidance that's enclosed in the release notification email. We will be providing updated guidance that will be very important in terms of the correction of noncompliance. So we want to make sure that you are adhering closely to the guidance provided in that notification email. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at lashonda.wilson@dc.gov. And with that, we'll turn it over now to Dion McAdoo and Chelsea Greer for a special introduction and also a few transportation reminders and updates.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chelsea Greer. I'm one of the community outreach specialists along with my partner, Dion McAdoo. Next slide, please. Calendars and transportation request forms. Calendars and transportation request forms, TRFs, provide the following guidance for OSSE DOT. Determining the appropriate bus route placement for the students. We currently have 4 terminals that consist of Southwest, 5th Street, New York Avenue, and Adams Place. Also, understanding the students' accommodations and transportation needs. Some of those accommodations may be a student needing a nurse, hand-to-hand, and of course, any medical comorbidities. Also, determining accurate pickup and drop-off times for each student, and understanding each student's school scheduling needs, which would include holidays, breaks, early releases, and staging. OSSE DOT provides transportation services to more than 300 schools. Currently, we have 116 DCPS schools, 135 public charter schools, and 55 non-public schools. Next slide, please. Criteria for transportation points of contacts, POCs. Every transportation point of contact needs to know the following information and ensure that they are operationalizing transportation requests within the LEA for students based on the following criteria. Calendars must be submitted prior to submitting the TRF. Processing a TRF can take up to 10 business days. Transportation services will not begin until the TRF has been processed. Managing data, please ensure the information on the calendar is accurate and reflects all non-instructional and early release dates. OSSE DOT is not able to edit any calendars or TRF submissions. Next slide, please. Requesting transportation. So step 1, please ensure that your calendar is submitted. LEA submits calendars in eSchool Plus. Step 2, TRF submissions. LEA submits TRF for eligible students, and that of course consists of an active IEP or 504 plan. Step 3, scheduling. TRF processing can take up to 10 days. Please allow up to 10 business days for that to be processed. The deadline to submit TRS for ESY is Monday, May the 6th, 2024. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, our director is having technical difficulties. I will be presenting the parent stipend portion, and at the end of the webinar, we will circle back to any questions or concerns. Next slide, please. Parent stipend program. OSSE has launched a new program to provide a monthly payment to eligible parents or guardians that choose to opt out of OSSE Division of Student Transportation provided vehicle or bus and self-transport their students to and from school. This includes drop-off and pick-up for special services the students receive that are related to their education, and that includes faith-related services. Eligible families who are approved to participate in the program will receive $400 per month to support self-transportation of students. Next slide, please. OSSE DOT resources. Of course, our Parent Resource Center operates between the hours of 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and listed below is the number, which is 202-576-5000. And on our ossedc.gov service/student transportation website, you will be able to view parent stipend program, the Student Transportation Family Handbook, our parent reimbursement program information, and any DOT daily updates, which includes inclement weather procedures. And if you have any questions and or concerns about the parent stipend program, you will be able to send an email to our osce.financedot@dc.gov website. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, and or comments, please feel free to reach out to myself or Dion McAdoo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be a Wednesday without a few technical issues, but thank you for bringing us some great updates in terms of transportation. All right, and with that, we'll pitch it now to Rita Larkins for special programs, reminders, and updates. Rita?
Thank you, Shandon, and good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to be presenting just a few updates and reminders from special programs. And we can go to our next slide. Thank you. So this reminder is about updating our staff profiles. For folks that have been working in the system, the staff profiles connect the staff persons with assessment services and other relevant areas of the system. So we want to make sure that folks are updating the disciplines in the system, updating the Part B direct services. So what services is that person able to provide? Is it a related service or a special ed or consultation service? And then also the evaluations and assessments. You have to bring in, or you have to add the different assessment types that our providers are able to perform. And that happens in the staff profile. Also caseload. This is another area that you can update to make sure that the caseload information is accurate. So all of these different profiles that I mentioned, they ensure that the providers or special ed teachers are ready for IEP services, reevaluation and eligibility, and also caseload assignment. In the next slide, this is about the evaluation assessment. So when you're doing reevaluation or initial eligibility in special programs, only evaluators that have the different evaluation types are going to come up when you are requesting those assessments. So you want to make sure that your providers or also your teachers have the different assessment types that they can perform in this particular profile. In the next slide, where we look at the disciplines. So this is for you to be able to add the discipline to your related service provider and also your teachers. And that discipline populates throughout the system when you are adding that person's name. It also attaches their discipline. You can also select the appropriate, so you would select the appropriate discipline. If more than one applies, you have the ability to add that. Next slide. In your direct services part B, you want to make sure that all of the services that the staff person performs are listed here. So under consultation services, under the related services, and also under special ed services, you want to be able to add all of those different services so that when you are requesting that service inside of the IEP, the services can then be assigned to a person that can perform those things. Next slide. All right, so just a quick review. We want to make sure that you are updating the profiles for your related service providers and also your special ed teachers. That includes reviewing the discipline, making sure that all the direct services for Part B are listed in the profile. All the different evaluation assessment types are also listed. And then you can review other staff profiles as needed, specifically caseload, licensing. Those are some other profiles that you're going to see under the staff section. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to LaShonda, and I'll be checking the chat for any questions about updating your staff in special programs. LaShonda? Oh, I'm sorry, I had another slide. My apologies. The downstream impacts, let's just talk about that. So when these different profiles that I mentioned are not updated, they do have some downstream impacts. And let's talk about them in the different documents that they would appear. So the AD, if the provider does not have the appropriate assessment types listed in their profile, you will not be able to select that provider in the AD section. And this will prevent the provider from being selected, and it'll also prevent them from receiving a notification about the assessment that was ordered. In the IEP, this will prevent you from selecting that provider for a direct service. So in the services and supplemental aid section of the IEP, if the provider does not have that direct service in their profile, you will not be able to select them for that service for the IEP. And even when you go to update the provider on the student side in the student's profile, again, if the provider does not have the direct services added in their profile, you will not be able to add that provider in the student's IEP services profile. Next slide. All right. In your profiles, I mentioned about being able to assign these direct services. You're also not going to be able to run reports on profiles. So the IEP services part B, service capture and assessments part B, that information will be missing your provider information if that provider profile is not appropriately updated. So just some reminders just to make sure that you're aware of the impacts of these things not being updated in the system, and then how they impact your ability to finalize IEPs with the correct provider information already listed. Okay, and I will turn it back over to you, LaShonda.
Thank you so much, Rita. We are definitely not complaining about more information. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead now and pitch it over to Katie Rita for information around non-public reminders and updates. Katie?
Thanks, LaShonda. Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. So this is a reminder regarding LEA age outs. Apologies that it's a little late. I think we're all still getting used to the dates of the new law, but it's a reminder that as an LEA, when you have a student who is attending a non-public school and they're going to exceed the maximum age or grade for the students that can be served within your public charter school, the LEA is responsible for issuing a written notification to the parents of their as a reminder of their responsibility to enroll their child in another LEA. You should have done so before the start of this new year, but if you have not, please make sure that you are reaching out directly to parents regarding enrollment options and helping them enroll their child in a new LEA for the start of the next school year. What we don't want is for students and families to not have an LEA to which they are connected to. This could result in a disruption in service for the student, and that's something that we certainly don't want to do. So please, for all of your kiddos that are attending a non-public school that are aging out of your LEA, please make sure you are working with the family directly to help explain to them why they are required to be enrolled in another LEA. It can certainly be confusing for them, so please make sure you're taking the necessary steps to do so and that you're issuing the required notifications. Some other considerations that you want to take into account when you have students that are aging out, is the student also aging out of their non-public school? If so, then you need to determine, is the child ready to transition to a lesser restrictive environment, or does the child need a new non-public school? You should be considering these things while the child is still in your enrollment, as it can be more difficult for a new LEA to be making these decisions. Also, have consideration on whether the student is transitioning to a less restrictive environment. Please make sure you are documenting these conversations. Each year over the summer, we have parents and students reach out to say that, oh yeah, my previous LEA, we were having these conversations. When it's not documented, it's very hard for the new LEA to take into consideration data to make a decision. So please make sure that you're having thoughtful conversations and that you're documenting these conversations as students move in between different IEP teams. Consider whether or not it makes sense for the current LEA, the receiving LEA, the parent, and the non-public school to have a meeting to do any sort of necessary handoffs or transitions to make sure everyone is on the same page. And also, you should be considering, is it appropriate to be making a non-public school placements decision for a student who will no longer be in your LEA within a period of time? And that student then will be transitioning to an entirely new IEP team. So it might be helpful to have conversations with the parent around what steps they're making for next year, including new IEP team members, so that way everyone can have a smooth transition and we don't have disjointed teams that are making decisions with information that they don't have. Next slide, please. This is a slide to help remind LEAs regarding students who are attending residential programs. I have included a link to OSSE's travel guidelines. This document is provided to both parents and LEAs many times throughout our service location process when the student is transitioning to a residential school or program. Please make sure you are reading Addendum B. It outlines very specifically OSSE's travel guidelines, what we fund, what we don't fund, how we fund getting students and parents to and from a residential school program. Included in the addendum is also an FAQ. So please make sure that you are fully reading through this document before reaching out to our non-public payment team with any additional questions. You can also reach out to myself or the case coordinator if you're unclear or you don't have the document, or you are not sure if it's a question for placement or if it's a question for payment. We're happy to point you in the right direction. Additionally, you also receive a transportation responsibility memo as a part of the transition of a student to a residential school program. It is provided to the parent and the LEA and also signed by the parent. And this memo outlines that the LEA will assume responsibility for all travel arrangements to ensure that the student's safe return to the district if there's a disruption of the student's placement at that residential program. That doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity for reimbursement. It means that you must take the lead on ensuring that travel is booked and the student can return to the district timely and safely. If you have any questions about students who are transitioning to or from residential programs, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Next slide, please. This is another reminder slide regarding LEA support and parent participation in our change in placement and change in location processes. Please remember that before you are meeting with us to talk about possibly having a student transition to or from a non-public school or changing non-public schools, that you are providing parental support and understanding of this process. Many times parents are showing up to meetings and they do not have an understanding. OSSE staff reach out and speak to parents as often as we can. However, we are not their people. They do not work with us daily. We are not attending their child's meetings on a regular basis and sending them emails and phone calls regarding their student. You are their trusted people. You are working with them on a regular basis and are intimately familiar with their child and not just someone who is a moment in time person. So it is imperative as an LEA that you are reaching out to the parent, explaining the processes, including the amount of time that they will have to take to participate in service location processes and admissions processes. We cannot help you or help the parent or the student if they are not aware and ready to engage with us and participate in the processes. That also includes that during the process, making sure that parents are responding to emails and phone communications from non-public schools and OSSE, that parents and students are completing visits, and that the LEA is supporting the parent with any transportation concerns to get to and from those visits. As an LEA, this is still your student and you are still responsible for making sure that the parent and the student are participating. OSSE will do our best to work with the non-public school to arrange everything, but as an LEA, you need to remain actively involved in that process. For after the referral process, remember as an LEA, you are responsible for scheduling and holding the IEP meeting with the parent in the non-public school, and then after the meeting is held, issuing the prior written notice and sending that to OSSE. Any delay in holding the meeting or completing and sending us the PWN is a delay in OSSE's ability to issue a notice of service location to get the student to their required placement so they can get their FAPE. We just ask that as an LEA, when you enter into these processes, that you are a ready and willing active participant, showing up to meetings that are scheduled, letting OSSE know when emergencies or situations come up that you can't attend meetings or can't get us documents so we can plan accordingly, and then working directly with parents and students to make sure that they are available to the process. What we don't want to have happen is for considerable resources to be used to move forward in this process for a parent and a student who are not available or not willing to participate. We are always happy to speak with you in advance of submitting any case to see how we can problem solve and make the process smooth for everyone moving forward. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back to LaShonda.
Thank you, Katie. And my apologies, the slides briefly advanced on us there. Thanks for staying on track, keeping us on track this morning. All right. We'll turn it over now to Buell Yim for teaching and learning reminders and updates. Buell?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bial Yim. I am the Instructional Systems Specialist for Special Education here at Teaching and Learning. Next slide, please. Continued information and updates on the DC Law 23-191, Addressing Dyslexia and Other Reading Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020. Dyslexia awareness modules will be available on OSSE's learning management system, and the new modules for pre-K and K-5 and adolescent to adult serving educators will be released in April. And another update on the science-based reading program requirement. OSSE has developed several new resources to support LEAs with implementation of high-quality instructional materials, HQIM, and science-based literacy instruction. And these will include a list of literacy programs that meet the criteria of science-based and high-quality instructional materials, and HQIM rubric to assist LEAs in evaluating whether literacy programs meet the requirements of a high-quality science-based reading program, and a guidance document to support LEAs to utilize the HQIM rubric to evaluate and select and evaluate the literacy curricula. All new literacy resources will be released in April as well. Next slide, please. And this is a reminder for the Secondary Transition Community of Practice. The Secondary Transition Community of Practice, short for COP, supports DC youth with disabilities as they transition into self-directed life. We are a citywide cross-section of stakeholders who come together to strengthen our individual and collective ability for action. This COP is led by School Talks Inclusive DC, and they convene regularly every month, having small group solution-oriented opportunities on specific transition-related topics. And most activities happen over Zoom or a hybrid format. And there is a link for the website to learn more about this opportunity. And the March meeting has already happened, but there's one coming up in April and May, June, July, and until September. So please, if you have any questions, please contact Alicia Beatty with Division of Post-Secondary and Career Education. Next slide, please. Another exciting professional development opportunities for you. There is a Introduction to Universal Design for Learning asynchronous course released on our OSSE LMS. You can dive into the theory and the practice of UDL and explore how it is used as a framework for inclusive practice that allow for more accessible and equitable learning environments. And you can find out more about the course through the link that is included in the slide. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, Bial Yim, at bial.yim@dc.gov. Next slide, please. Last but not least, if you wish to find out more about our awesome professional development opportunities, you're highly encouraged to sign up for our Teaching and Learning PD Bulletin through the link that is included in the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Buell. And now to round things out, we'll have a few announcements and reminders.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dawn Hilton. I am the 619 coordinator here at OSSE. The first announcement I would like to review is the Innovative Technology for Early Childhood Assessment, INTECT project, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Following the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced practitioners in early childhood special education to adopt new ways to conduct assessments, the INTECT project is tasked with increasing the body of knowledge on equitable and innovative approaches by building capacity of the field to use technology to support authentic assessments through disseminating tools, methods, and frameworks in early childhood. InTech would like to hear from practitioners who conducted assessments virtually, as well as directors and coordinators in special ed. If you're interested, please consider participating in this interview process. It is a way for them to gain information from practitioners as well as parents to strengthen their resources. And if you participate, they will reimburse you with a $30 gift card. For more information, please contact the individuals listed on the slide or visit the website. Next slide. All right, if you have not yet joined us, please consider joining us for the Early Childhood Special Education Community of Practice on April 24th from 10 to 11 for an engaging conversation about instructional practices and strategies for specific disability categories. We encourage you to share this information with anyone who may be interested in this topic and who is also serving and supporting children within the ages of 3 to 5 enrolled in the special education program. The link for April's registration will actually be dropped in the chat. So please reference the chat if you would like to register. And if you have specific questions, please contact me. My contact information is also listed on this slide. All right, LaShonda, back to you.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, if by chance you happen to miss a webinar, please be sure to visit our webpage for the LEA Special Education Points of Contact monthly webinar series. A recording and a PDF version of the slides will always be available within 1 week of the live webinar. You can also watch previous webinars and download any training resources and materials. And our next webinar is actually our final webinar for this series, and that's happening on Wednesday, May 15th at 10 a.m. So please be sure to mark your calendars accordingly. Just as today was covered with quite a bit of content, we'll be covering equally an additional amount of content in May, as it is our last session of the series. All right, last month you all gave us great feedback. We'd like to continue that. So please go ahead and take out your cell phones, scan the QR code on your screen, or visit the link to the survey, which can be found in the handout of the attachment that we provided for the survey. Please be sure to fill that out. We utilize your feedback to determine what we're going to present for you in terms of content. And with that, I'll go ahead and pitch it briefly to Christy Weaver-Harris before we round out. Christy, do we have any questions that have come in that we need to address with the group?
We actually, we don't. We have only gotten 2 questions this month, which is a good sign that I guess we're providing some pretty thorough information. I will speak to them generally. Just a reminder, if you are having issues with ESY related things in special programs, make sure you submit an OST ticket. If you have questions about the parent stipend program, if you are being contacted by parents that are having issues with the parent stipend program, please refer them directly back to OSSE at osse.financeDOT@dc.gov. That's going to be your best way of getting in contact with folks.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. All right. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our broadcast. So we thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to meeting back here next month. Don't forget to mark your calendars, May 15th, and have a great afternoon.